In this episode of Health Wealth, I would like to cover an update on the clinical pipeline and the Q1 2021 earnings report from Intellia Therapeutics. If you are a current investor in the gene editing industry or you consider to become one, you will certainly come across Intellia Therapeutics as one of the sort of household names in this industry. The gene editing industry is relatively new, and the first companies Crispr Therapeutics and Editas Medicine both were founded in 2013, to be followed by Intellia Therapeutics, which was founded in 2014 by Nobel Prize winner Jennifer Doudna and others. But before we dive in, a quick thank you and shout out to all of my subscribers. It's encouraging to see that many of you have decided to subscribe. And unlike most other YouTube channels, I will not ask you to subscribe to my channel at the beginning of the video. I trust you're familiar enough with YouTube, and if you see the value in my videos, I trust you will subscribe without me asking for it. Although I have a PhD in biomedical engineering and over 15 years of working experience in the healthcare industry, I do not intend to give you investment advice. Please do your own research before making any investments. You are watching Health Wealth. If you're new to this channel, welcome. If you're not, nice to have you back. Like most other gene editing companies, also Intellia Therapeutics divide their clinical activities into the In-Vivo program and Ex-Vivo program. Regular viewers of my channel will know that I focus very much on the clinical pipeline and the progress within those, because after all, it is through the success of a clinical pipeline that any of these gene editing companies are able to provide the financial returns we expect as investors. So let's quickly dive in and take a look at their in vivo pipeline and the progress made. Intellia Therapeutics have listed 5 different programs, of which the NTLA 2001 is their most advanced. The NTLA 2001 program is for the treatment of transthyretin amyloidosis. Kudos here to the Intellia website and the additional information they provide on this particular program. Transthyretin amyloidosis is affecting the nerves, heart, kidneys, and eyes due to the misfolded transthyretin protein. But the key question to any potential investor is the addressable market, and also here Intellia Therapeutics provide all of the details. There are 50,000 patients who suffer from the hereditary form of the disease, and an additional 200 to 500,000 patients who have the so-called wild-type form of the disease. This is indeed a devastating disease, as the average life expectancy is between 2 to 15 years from the onset of symptoms. We can clearly see that there is a market, although in comparison to most other, let's say, traditional disease types addressed by the healthcare industry, the market here is relatively small. But the good news is, as we have seen with many other treatments from competing companies for other disease indications, is that there is the regulatory status of the so-called orphan drugs. And in March of this year, the European Community has granted the orphan drug status to the program NTLA 2001, which is for the treatment of transthyretin amyloidosis. Generally speaking, the orphan drug status allows not only a faster way through the regulatory pathway towards commercialization and bringing these treatments into the hands of patients who desperately need them, but also provides protection, ensuring market exclusivity for a relatively long period of time, which then makes it overall a financially interesting and compelling business case to develop and bring these kinds of medicines to the market. Looking at the clinicaltrials.gov website, we see that the NTLA 2001 study is actively recruiting for 38 patients. The first patient was dosed in November 2020, and the study completion is expected by March 2024. And even the first dosing of the patient in this study was somewhat of a hallmark moment in the gene editing industry. This marked the first ever in vivo CRISPR-Cas9 treatment, which was delivered intravenously to a patient. The ongoing study is an open-label study comprised of 2 parts. In part 1 of the study, a single ascending dose is delivered in order to determine the safety, tolerability, pharmacokinetics, and pharmacodynamics. And then once the optimal dose has been determined, in part 2, an extension cohort will be treated with that dose. Additionally, to any investor, it should be comforting to know that this clinical program is being developed in collaboration with Regeneron. They are a leading biotech company with over 30 years industry experience, and certainly the knowledge how to bring new treatments to market. We have already seen this type of collaboration in my previous video on Crispr Therapeutics working together with Vertex Pharmaceuticals. If you're interested, I leave a link here for the video. But overall, it makes sense and it is no surprising that Intellia also have used the same strategy, where they being a relatively new company, highly innovative, needs to partner with a very well-established company who have lots of experience and regulatory expertise in bringing new treatments to market. The second most advanced of the in vivo programs is the Intellia 2002 study for the hereditary angioedema treatment. And this program is currently in the IND or Investigational New Drug Development enabling phase. According to the Q1 2021 earnings report, Intellia are planning to file an IND or IND equivalent application for the Intellia 2002 program in the second half of 2021. Additionally, Intellia lists 3 more in vivo research programs, 2 of which are in collaboration with Regeneron. So, let's now take a look at Intellia's Ex-Vivo pipeline. And here we find the treatments in immuno-oncology and autoimmune diseases. Here we have the most advanced of the clinical programs for the treatment of sickle cell disease, and this program is in partnership with Novartis. From an investment point of view, I'm a bit worried about this program, in particular because of my recent video on the progress that Crispr Therapeutics have made on their CTX-001 clinical trial and the progress they are making to commercialize this treatment under the Prime Medicines designation as well as Orphan drug status. If you have not seen my recent video on this topic, I'll leave a link here as well as in the description below. In short, both companies aim to treat sickle cell disease by inducing fetal hemoglobin. And if Crispr Therapeutics manage to really commercialize their treatment first, under the orphan drug status as well as priority medicine status, they will enjoy at least 10 years of market exclusivity, banning all other competitors from being able to commercialize their product, at least in the European market, during the 10-year period. And precisely for this reason, I see this clinical program from an investment point of view very much at risk. So let's move on to the Intellia 5001 program for the treatment of acute myeloid leukemia. The treatment approach here is to engineer Wilms tumor T cells, which specifically and efficiently kill AML blasts. And again, nicely done by the Intellia website, we see the disease prevalence in major markets around the globe, 21,000 in the US and 40,000 in the 7 major global markets. Based on these numbers, this type of treatment certainly will qualify for orphan drug status as well. And again, we see the clinical progress being made as Intellia lists in their Q1 financial report that they expect in the middle of 2021 to submit an IND or IND equivalents for their treatment Intellia 5001. Wrapping up with the ex-vivo clinical pipeline, we see this in additional programs. They are trying to use the same kind of T cells to treat other solid tumors. In addition, there's one program wholly owned by Intellia for undisclosed topics, as well as another undisclosed study or studies in collaboration with Novartis. Let me now quickly talk about one topic of new research done by Intellia Therapeutics, which I'm absolutely excited and thrilled about. And this is their work on using base editors. In case you're not yet very familiar with base editing, I highly recommend that you watch my 2-part video series where I do a deep dive on the work of the CRISPR-Cas9, some of its problems, and the advantages of a newer editing technique, which is called base editing, which has been pioneered by a company called Beam Therapeutics. I leave a link here to the video as well as in the description below. In short, I'm absolutely thrilled that Intellia Therapeutics have developed their own proprietary base editors in order to address, well, first of all, expand their clinical pipeline capabilities, and in order to address some of the shortcomings that are known to happen with the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing approach. In case you're interested in the scientific presentation that Intellia Therapeutics have presented recently, I leave a link in the description below. Without going too much into detail, here are just some highlights from that presentation. And this slide shows that they have managed to develop a proprietary base editor, which is able to allow them to edit or to change basically specific base pairs, such as G to A and C to G. Because base editing does not induce a double-stranded helix break, it allows for more precise gene editing. And you can see here how the base editing capabilities nicely complement Intellia's gene editing toolbox. Intellia summarized the capabilities of their proprietary base editor on the slide I'm showing here. Clearly, their focus has been on T-cell or engineered T-cells, and their proprietary base editor is capable of editing as efficiently as the traditional Cas9 system. And from an investment point of view, it is comforting to see that they have concluded that their base editing approach is compatible with their current T-cell engineering process. I expect in the future we will see a lot more on base editing coming from Intellia, and that makes me super bullish on their technology. However, given how new the field of base editing is, Beam Therapeutics has also been just founded very recently, and Intellia report here as a new research project on base editing. Do not expect any clinical activities anytime soon on this. So let's wrap up this video with a quick look at the financial situation of Intellia Therapeutics. At the moment, Intellia Therapeutics have 600.8 million in cash or cash equivalents available to them. Not surprisingly, given the activities in the clinical pipeline, the R&D expenses increased in this quarter to $39.3 million in comparison to $34.7 million in the quarter last year. The general and administrative expenses in Q1 2021 were $13.6 million, which comprises an increase of 2.3 million related to employee-based activities and stock compensation programs. And overall, in Q1 2021, Intellia Therapeutics have amassed a loss of $46.2 million in comparison to $31.8 million in the same quarter in 2020. This means for the first quarter of 2021, Intellia Therapeutics have had a loss of 69 cents per share. I do not expect them to be profitable anytime soon, as of course a lot of activities related to their clinical pipeline consume a vast amount of money. And it is only through the progress and the success in their clinical pipelines that they will eventually be able to bring commercial products to market, which then generate cash flow that will reward investors handsomely. So please always view these kinds of investments as long-term holdings. I hope you found this video useful and informative, and if it was of any value to you, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel.